was just an average dude, neck beard sitting in my bedroom, smoking on a little some green Buddha. Eat some crappy British food, never leave the house without a fedora. Never really leave or ever go out, lines where I get to be rude, video games will never break my heart. It's when I saw the fucking witch Anita and the feminist frequency, talking about people like me, saying gamers are mean, we don't like the left. She said that she's a gamer since she's 10, and she wanna bring down all the gamer men. That's when the nerd rage hit me and then transformed to the warlord I became. Look what you done. I'm the motherfucking Sargon. Look what you done. I'm the motherfucking Sargon. Every day women wanna put me out. Every day YouTube try to take me down. Try to come after my Patreon. It's like I'm taking on a feminist jihad. Martin Luther King by today's child. It's called the Uncle Tom that should get fired. Just feel mad that I wouldn't rape her. Trevor Noah put a claim on a fucking picture, and now the media label me alt-right Klansman Nazi, because I'm anti-identity like my white male founding father relatives. I've been anointed the new face of the defense of Western civilization, mostly defending my brain from integration and defending my neck from a razor blade. Look what you done. I'm the motherfucking Sargon. Look what you done. I'm the motherfucking Sargon.
If you thought that I was finished with the subject of Iblis, think again. Very few characters have needed a second part in my videos. This is an exception. I've gone into the background and origin of Iblis, but now I shall cover the agenda of this dark spirit and his purpose behind the continued suffering of the people of Islam, and the source of Iblis's power, which the Muslim approach to diminish his power shall not have an effect upon. This power source he has been working on for quite some time. It is housed within the suffering of Islam, the homeland of his once trusted personal bodyguards, that is the engine of his power. Thinking in ways of spiritual ascension, I shall explain what he has created, which is basically a generator or fountain of dark spiritual energy he draws upon to create an endless supply of evil spirits that can fuel his desire for further conquest and revenge. The corruption of the faith and beliefs and their way of life creates as a byproduct of weakened physical people from starvation due to the constant fasting, denying the body of vital nutrition, causing the muscles to become weak and the immune system to become susceptible to common colds, as well as cause the emotional state to be easily manipulated towards anger and violence. The ultimate outcome of this on a large-scale level has created a river of those dying in this region with contempt in their hearts and so easily swayed into becoming dark and evil spirits that is supplying to a replenishable army of evil spirits. But there is a darker force that is behind Iblis, an ancient evil that goes back to before the flood of Noah's tale, Golgothos, the Dark One, enemy of the Celtics Druids, that is the living darkness that their ancestors sealed away long ago. Now it pains me to have to rise against this specific deity, because honestly I revere the aptitude of this being's evil. Many of my own evil traits were modeled after this terror of the old world, and this is like the death of a childhood role model for me. Okay, I'm over it. Golgothos can be found under more recent activities and surnames of the supernatural character in the exorcism accounts to be that of the one known as the Baron, who usually appears to those who encounter him as the biblical depiction of the devil, huge wingspan, spiraling horns from the head, hates all mankind, your God is not here today priest type attitude. I realize now that this was the figure that had followed me and Gabriel into the passage of time as we were returning from the crucifixion and were assaulted by this Baron, or Golgothos, as the hill of Golgotha was the ancient battleground of the ancient antediluvian war where he fell in battle and is the reason that area was given its name, the Mountain of Bones. His spirit must have been watching Christ's death and observed the Trinity separate as was planned at Christ's death and the reason he was chosen to be our vessel. Knowing exactly when his death occurred allowed us to separate the junction that joined the Trinity into the one being who was the Creator and God's angelic form for the creation event. When Gabriel went to escort my spirit back to our era, he must have jumped into the vortex which first led us to the church of Vladimir Tepes, who saw the image of Christ crucified and dipped his communion chalice into the bleeding image of the crucifixion, thinking it was God's gift of vengeance for the murder of his family at the hands of the Turkish spy. Once we dispatched the impaler for the monster he had become in his grief after the death of the young girl, we tried to return to the portal of time and continue our journey only to be physically, knocked of course by Golgothos himself, and ended up in the French Revolution just after Joan of Arc's execution, where I fought this demon who had possessed a mercenary general known as Gilles de Race. I housed myself in a young captain's sword, and as those two fought each other so did Golgothos and I. Both equally powerful in mystical battle and the chaos magics in the spiritual realm. Sparks of the divine power of God clashed with the ancient arcane art of chaos magic flew about us with every encounter. Our blades matched against each other until I got the upper hand and fastened the spell that held me within the sword to Gilles de Race helmet and trapped Golgothos within it. Gabriel and I continued on after that, but poor Giles held on to his helmet after that from what I hear, and became obsessed with reenacting the battle he experienced, eventually driving himself broken mad. Before his execution for killing and dismembering many children, it is said that a demon had appeared to him that drove him to do what did, by the name known only as the Baron, and has been haunting people ever since. The most recent was the request for an exorcism by a family who had a little girl who said she was visited often by a demon who called himself the Baron. Thinking that it was maybe the spirit of a German warplane pilot, the exorcist dismissed the case as family issues and mental stress. He would not have recognized this demon from before the biblical age that would not adhere or be recognized by any of the holy symbols used to identify such demons. He was bringing torment to man since before Christ walked the earth, and this was no ordinary demon but the Dark Lord himself. Now prayer or passage of the Bible would stand toward an attack from this adversary. When the angelic hymns speak of the conquering of the light against the forces of darkness, he was that force behind that darkness. Even still casting him into that eternal darkness of a prison they had, then did not contain him, as he was the reason their bodies were arranged in a mass exodus funeral of bodies that surrounded the site where they thought they had sealed him away. A testimony to their failure. And that is why I like this guy so much. Such imagination and finesse. The classic true evil never dies. But for every veil of darkness there comes the inevitable morning dawn that is their destruction. And if I must, then well, it won't be the first time my Montague and I have clashed swords in battle. Plus I think I have just enough room for his head on my wall right next to folded steel forged copy of Frostmourne, which is the sword of Sauron from the Lord of the Rings movie. One last note in this is to those who think they want to go and smite evil and rain down righteous vengeance in the name of God, and to those who think they can just throw a horse's saddle over a demon and call it a broken steed to be used. A small enlightenment to those who push the defenseless who are unprepared. This is what happens when you push a figure such as the King of Demons when you're a demon yourself. The result is a formidable demon hunter who knows your inner secrets and that can exploit those weaknesses to their advantage. A hunter who dreams of placing his challenging adversaries' heads as trophies on his wall of knockoff memorabilia, giving it a more authentic look. Oh, and one last thing I forgot. The biblical prophecies speak of the 7 woes of God's wrath. Using my skills to discern its meaning, the 7 woes are 7 cataclysmic events that will threaten the extinction of all mankind before 2036. If we can divert those 7 woes from destroying the earth, then we shall win the apocalypse and thwart the destruction of creation and our species. Humanity shall continue on for another 1,000 years, as will existence continue as well. The only problem is that I do not know how many woes have come and passed so far, only that Apophis and its collision in 2036 marks the last woe to threaten us, and that another woe lies in its passing in 2029 when one of its companions traveling with it as it says that there will be 2 other asteroids traveling alongside it. One of those travelers is foreseen to possibly collide with our moon during its pass-by in 2029, that could have the potential of knocking our moon out of orbit. If that were to occur, then the Earth would lose its magnetosphere shielding along with its tidal effects, and, apart from the massive disasters that would fall upon us all, it also would destroy the life upon the Earth forever, as we would lose our quality that supports the life upon our world. One more point I wish to mention is the attitude the world has had in their disbelief I have encountered to my name. Despite the prophecies that foretell my being here during this time, a minority of those people will claim they look forward to the day when the second Messiah shall emerge. Now call me crazy, pause for laughs, but if the world has shit on me just based on my namesake, what makes anyone think they won't do the same with him? So if you really want something more current to base your anticipations of the coming Messiah, I'd recommend keeping an eye open for those who, like myself, realized one day that he was the one everyone is expecting and gets slapped down and denied by the world no matter how accurately they prove themselves to be who they say. I'd suggest keeping an eye for that for his coming, and just from me to you. You dubbed me unforgiven to be crucified before the world. Well, now you're unforgiven too, and we'll call it even on that issue. Oh, and I found the trail of the mystery to Hitler and where he went, as well as why he isn't in hell. He's been reincarnated to none other than Kim Jong-un, and I think he knows it. That's the creepy part.
Lucifer, you speak with a humble heart like the prophets of Old-Gay, and come-minded. I shall not destroy them, but as their matriarch, you must decide their punishment.
Separated far from each other, without charge, without shape. They were the remnant particles ejected from existence that had been projected at speeds beyond
I caught it bad just today. You hit me with a call to your place. Ain't been out in a while anyway. Was hoping I could catch you throwing smiles in my face. Romantic talking, you don't even have to try. You're cute enough to fuck with me tonight. Looking at the table, all I see is bleeding white. Baby, you living the life, but nigga, you ain't living right. Cocaine and drinking with your friends. You live in the dark, boy, I cannot pretend. I'm not faced, only here to sin. If you've been in your garden, you know that you can. Call me when you want, call me when you need. Call me in the morning, I'll be on the way. Call me when you want, call me when you need. Call me out by your name, I'll be on the way. Like, I wanna sell what you're buying. I wanna feel on your ass in Hawaii. I want that jet lag from fucking and flying. Shoot a shot in your mouth while I'm riding. Oh, I mean, a sign of the times every time that I speak. A dime and a nine, it was mine every week. What a time and a climb, God was shining on me. Now I can't leave, and now I'm making hella Italy. Never want the niggas that's in my league. I wanna fuck the ones I envy. I envy. Cocaine and drinking with your friends. You live in the dark, boy, I cannot pretend. I'm not faced, only here to sin. If you've been in your garden, you know that you can. Call me when you